It says rotate my phone. Like that? All right, I'm going to have to do that. Should we wait for people to hop on? Because nobody's watching it. So we should probably wait. Mary's watching. Hi, Mary. All right, we're waiting for people. Kaihan's watching. I don't see that, but okay. I only see one person. That's okay. We'll wait another minute, and then we'll get started. There's 2 people. 3 people. Oh, I got you, Kaihan. All right. Yeah, Mary, you are welcome. It was really good. I'm sore. All right. We can just get started. And then we have 5 people now, so we said 12, so we'll do it. Go ahead.
So today's video is on how to clean your bike. Since this is mostly a triathlon group, I'm going to focus on cleaning your chain. But before you clean your chain, you should get most of the muck off of your bike, because you don't want the dirt and sand from the rest of your bike to land on your clean chain. So we'll start with a quick cleaning of the bike and then focus on the chain. The reason why triathletes need to care about clean chains is because we pay ridiculous amounts of money for like every little watt of savings, and a clean chain will save you about 8 watts of power, which is the equivalent of a $3,000 wheel set or a ridiculous ceramic bearing kit. And so just having a nice clean chain and lubing it well is a huge performance advantage. So you might as well take advantage of it. I do a lot of mountain bike racing and training in bad weather, and I've worked as a bike mechanic when I was young, so I've got a lot of experience cleaning bikes. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. Everyone's got their own. You talk to 5 mechanics, you'll get 5 pet peeves on how people are doing it wrong. This is my explanation. There's a couple things that I will say are pretty key, and I'll go over those in the lecture. But generally, it's not rocket science. You're just cleaning your bike. So I'll get right at it. The first thing we're going to do is just take some big brushes, some big soft brushes, and get most of the dirt off of the bike. This is my personal preference. Is if you get back from a rainy ride or something like that, I like to actually sit the bike down in front of. I've got a dehumidifier in my basement, and I just plunk it right in front of the dehumidifier and dry the bike off that way. And I don't try to clean the bike while it's still wet. I'm not a big fan of using a garden hose and soap, and I really am not a big fan of using a pressure washer. When you're using a hose or a pressure washer, you have the possibility of putting dirt past the nice fancy seals on all your sealed cartridge bearings and injecting grit right into your bearings, which isn't so good. So I actually like to let the bike get crusty and then clean off the dry crust. So here's a nice crusty bike, and I'm just going through with a big brush and just getting the worst of it off. There's a lot that gets kicked up on the down tube. And I would like to, it's nice to do this in a bike stand, but we don't have Wi-Fi on my bike stand, so we're doing it on the ground. So I'm not going into super detail. I'm just trying to get most of the grit off.
Yeah, that's okay.
This is where like a little brush is handy. Get into the tight spots. A couple companies make these like brush kits. Pedro's makes a brush kit. Finish Line, I think, makes a brush kit. So if you go to your bike shop, Park Tools, I'm sure, makes a bike brush kit. So you can go into a bike shop and buy a brush kit. You can also just, this brush is a bottle brush, I think, for babies' bottles. And probably cleaned baby bottles in its former life. Then, when you're going to actually use some cleaner, there's a couple possibilities. This is a bicycle cleaner. It's got some polish in it. It's got some, I think it's like a silicone polish in it. Those are nice for making your frame shiny. The downside is you don't want to just go and spray your bike with it, because you will get it on the brake rotor if you have disc brakes, and you want to keep a disc brake rotor clean at all costs. So if you do the garden hose method and use soap, use like a cheap dish soap or something like that that's not going to have any oils in it, because you do not want to get any oils on your brake rotor. I like to use a rag, and that's this, right? This is just a mixture of just all-purpose cleaner and degreaser. This is probably a 1 to 10 dilution of this. So I'll just spray it onto a rag. And then wipe my bike down with that. Get all the noon off of my down tube. All the sweat off of the top tube.
While he's cleaning, if anybody has any questions, like so far, or something that you want to make sure he covers, feel free to ask questions, and I'll just see if I can read them to him. I think I can see them coming in. I see people who are watching. I haven't seen any comments yet, so except for Mary, and Phil Kirby is here. So if you have anything, Anyway, you're taking off the fender.
Yeah, I'm just taking off my fender. I took off my Garmin Varia mount. Garmin Varias are great. Here's some stands on my tubeless tire. That'll be next. Our next class is sealing a tubeless tire.
Oh yeah, Mary, you wanted that next week, tubeless.
All right, so I've got most of the grit, especially away from the drivetrain. So I'm going to show you how to clean the drivetrain. What I'm going to do first, since I'm on the ground and I'm going to be pedaling the bike around and everything like that, first what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the emergency brake on. So I got a rubber band. I'm going to clamp the rear brake closed.
Walter Roden. Oh, okay. Walter's here.
So
okay.
now the
nice.
Now the bike won't roll on me. It'll just fall over on me. And I've got a couple brushes for cleaning drivetrains. This is a Park tool brush for cleaning the cassette, and so I can pedal backwards and put this brush on there and clean the cassette. This is an outdated brush. This tool is for getting in between the cogs, and it works barely on this Shimano 11 speed, but it doesn't fit in between all the 12 speed stuff. So my mountain bikes, I can't use this on my mountain bikes. It's so satisfying to use it on my road bike now. And again, I'm just getting the grit out of here. I want to get the big stuff out first, because once I get it wet, everything's going to want to stick. So I'm going to brush this off. Make sure you clean the idler pulleys, and this derailleur has a clutch on it, so I'm going to turn the clutch off so the derailleur can work like that.
Pam wants that drivetrain cleaning tool. Yeah, order it.
This is a good one. Another one is this one. Who's this made by? The Grunge brush. This is my, like, I always stick this in my bike bag when I take my bike on a trip. And it's a good one for when your bike is really nasty. I'll clean the chain with this one first and kind of do a pre-treatment with this brush to get the sand off. You can get at it from a couple different angles.
Oh yeah.
Before I go on to the next thing. And the next thing, Park makes one of these, and Finish Line I think makes one, and Pedro's makes one. But I used to make fun of these things, and then 11-speed and 12-speed drivetrains came around, where I basically am to the point where I use this almost, if not every ride, every other ride, because the modern drivetrains are so sensitive to grit.
Is that the same solution as what's in there?
Yeah, so that looks
a little lighter.
This is a little, yeah. I probably do the same 1 to 10 dilution on this. I play with it sometimes. If you do a little bit, if it's too strong, it ends up like sudsing up. Mm-hmm. But if it's too weak, it doesn't clean it as well.
Walter wants to know where you get the tool, the red one. Where do you get this one? The Grunge
brush?
The Grunge brush.
I wonder who makes this.
Maybe you can Google that, the Grunge brush. That's what it's called.
We got it through QVP at the bike shop. So ask your local bike shop. So this thing should have a fill line on it. Yeah, there's a fill line right there. So I'm gonna add this cleaner into it to there. Clamp, put that on there. This on there, close it up.
And you're pedaling backwards.
Pedaling backwards. If I were on a bike stand, I might be pedaling forward, but I don't have that option here.
Right. REI is made by Finish Line. The Grunge brush is available at REI. It's made by Finish Line. Thank you. Oh, look at that.
And I know all the local bike shops have access to Finish Line too, so
yeah.
If you want to get it locally,
oh,
they
Ace
can get
Hardware.
it too.
Okay.
Ace Hardware.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, so now it's kind of sudsy, so I'm going to go back to this brush and kind of move some of these suds to the cassette. Set it a little bit.
Now your thing is still, this is still unlocked?
Yeah, that's still unlocked. I could.
Okay. You could lock it if you wanted?
I could lock it at this point.
Okay.
All right, now I'm going to get a rag. Chain came off. Gotta take off my emergency brake.
There you go.
I'm gonna take this opportunity to shift gears. So I can expose a new spot of the cassette. So I'm getting there. Keep changing. See all this grit that I'm getting off of the chain? So I keep changing spots on my rag, so I'm not just redistributing the grit.
It's getting windy. Pam, it's a good thing you're in Florida. It's cold here today. And I think Roberta's there. Stay down there, RB. There you go.
The upper pulley. I'll wipe my chain ring. So we'll get it a lot cleaner. Sometimes if I have the option, I'll use compressed air to blow out the inner links inside here. So I'll aim down and run the chain backward while I use compressed air to blow that out. If you don't have access to an air compressor, I guess you could use like those compressed air cans for cleaning computers. You're probably getting pretty anal at that point, and it may not be worth it. But if you need your drive crane really clean, then that's important.
You're getting the one where the chain was?
That one that I missed, yeah. All right.
Any questions, more questions as we go through this? Let us know.
So now I've got it. I'm just gonna feel it. Got it pretty dry and clean. So now I'm gonna lube it. This is my chain lube of choice called Squirt Lube. It's basically, if anyone's familiar with paraffin wax, doing a chain with paraffin wax, this is basically paraffin wax that hasn't dried.
Okay. How often do you clean your bike? Every ride? Or should you?
It kind of depends on the ride. Depends on the weather that you're through. With my mountain bikes and my gravel bike, I try to do it just about every ride. At least a quick wipe down, and even if I can't do a full clean with that, I'll try to just do a quick one with this grunge brush, just to get the bulk of the stuff off the chain.
What about road or tri-bike?
Road or tri-bike can go every 2 or 3 rides if the weather's nice. But if you ride on wet roads, you should clean it afterward.
Okay. Okay. Good question.
So this is Squirt Lube.
New England, we give away samples of Squirt in race bags.
Yeah, and those things are great for taking 2 races, because you can take those little ones. I once did a race in Costa Rica, and the race organizers repeatedly said you need to bring chain lube during the race. And I had never even heard of applying chain lube during a race, and they said you will not finish the race if you do not bring chain lube, because your chain will seize up during the course of one race day, which I never believed. But I threw one of those little squirt things in my pocket, and sure enough, I had to lube my chain 4 times.
All right, so you just squirted a little bit in and pedaled backwards?
So I just very gently squirted it on. It's just very lightly coated. You do not want a lot of chain lube on your chain. And then I'm going to take my fingers and just kind of massage it into the links here. Lift it up and push it down.
Oh, okay.
And once I kind of got it on my fingers, then I'll turn my fingers and try to get it on the side plates. You don't really need it on the side plates, because the links are really the only wear surface. I'm just applying it on the side links more as corrosion protection than anything else.
Okay.
You don't want a lot of sticky lube on the plates because that's just going to attract dirt, which is going to get into your drivetrain, which is going to shorten the life of your drivetrain. So there we go. We've got a cleaned and lubed drivetrain.
Nice. Any other questions? What about like, do you brake pads or anything? Like, do you do anything with that? You just brush in there and keep it clean?
Yeah, you really don't even want to brush in there if you don't have to.
Okay.
If your
you don't
brake
have
pads are, if your disc brakes are rubbing, we'll break it down between disc brakes and rim brakes. Disc brakes, you really want to make sure you don't contaminate the rotor, and you don't even really want to touch your rotor with your fingers because the oil on your fingers can contaminate rotors. So the best thing to do would be take your wheel off. You can blow some air to just get the grit off the pads. You could take a very clean rag and rub it through. If you really need to clean the rotors, you can use pure alcohol to clean them. If they got contaminated with oil, generally you should replace the pads and the rotor. I've heard of tricks where you take the rotor, unbolt the rotor, boil it in soapy water, and that will somewhat decontaminate it. But
that sounds like level 10 bike mechanic stuff.
That's kind of higher level.
Kaihan wants to know, is doing ultrasonic deep clean once a season worth it?
Where you take the chain off and put it in an ultrasonic cleaner?
Maybe.
Yeah, that can be done. There's a school of thought that you shouldn't take the chain off to clean it because you might put the chain on backwards or upside down or in a different orientation than it was, and then that will cause it to not match the wear pattern of your cassette or chain ring. I don't think that's as big a deal as some people make it out to be. I do sometimes when I just can't get my chain clean this way, I will take it off and clean it.
Like with an ultrasonic cleaner, or just
I
like
don't
this,
usually
or just
use
like
an
this
ultrasonic
stuff?
cleaner. I do have one, and I've done it. But I also found that like one of these stiff brushes and then a dish pan works too. And I'll use like maybe a stronger solution of this, maybe just a 1-to-1 solution of this, and just soak it and do that. Ultrasonic certainly works. The other thing is, when in doubt, buy a new chain. Because cassettes are now up to $500 or $400. Chain rings aren't cheap, and chains are getting more expensive too, but it's still the least expensive part of your drivetrain. And a worn or dirty chain will cause premature wear of your cassette and chain rings. So I will go through at least one chain a season, and that's spread out between quite a few bikes that I ride. So I'd say when in doubt, put a new chain on. That opens up another whole thing because brand new chains come with a very sticky chain lube on them. So you need to get that real sticky chain lube off before you put your new chain on. And we can save that for another video, but you can also YouTube around, and there's lots of great tips on how to prepare a brand new chain for your bike.
Awesome. Any other questions before we... the sun's coming out for a second before it probably starts raining. Any other questions, anybody? All right. Well, you can always post them later when this this live video stays on the knee site, and then Seamus can answer them. Phil Kirby says, "I think I better clean my bike." Probably. All right, guys. Have a good day. Thank you.